All righty. I can see your name on the screen, Juan. I don't know if you can hear me yet. Let me know when you can.
Here, there, there. Hey, sorry for that late entry there, Lewis. I locked myself out of the building and out of the car and had to do some gymnastics to get my keys back.
Yep, no worries at all. I was just about ready to cover with the people, which may interest you. I'm changing kind of the way truth tours are done. I'm attempting, and I will be successful at this. Is we're going to do our after Hawaii. Hawaii is kind of just a little fun event, I guess. But then after Hawaii in June, we're going to do True Tour San Diego, which is going to be absolutely free for everybody.
What was the dates on your Hawaii thing there again?
28th and 29th.
Oh yeah, and I'm on the other side of the planet at that time, and we talked about that, and it's annoying because I actually have other stuff over in the islands I have to do, and I was going to try and juggle that in, but just doesn't quite fit. So, darno.
That's all right. It is what it is. I'm really excited about the San Diego event, because I believe this is going to be a game changer, and this event's going to be free. We're looking for a venue right now, folks. By the way, just go to truetour.net and just put in your email saying you want to be part of this event, because my goal with these things is, and I believe I can pull it off, if we can do it for free. If I lose money like I've lost on all the other ones, it is what it is at this point. But I think we need more people in the room, because we're really going to go into how you can take back your country from a community level, one community at a time. At the same time, we'll bring a bunch of speakers events. And I'm trying to get rid of the whole celebrity bullshit, to be honest with you, and just get, we need to get focused and get on the right people. So this will be more of a patriot event, guys, less of that spiritual deal. And by the way, that'll be a question I'll be asking Juan today. So I just want to let you guys know, go to truetour.net for San Diego. That will be an amazing mega event, and it's free, but make sure you get your name in there, because we're trying to figure out what type of venue size that we need. Through Gina, we had a conversation with Juan. Juan knows that I would like to do a Q&A today. But Juan, I guess you have some breaking information that you want to tell us too. Is that right?
Well, there's a discussion that I think needs to be had, and I apologize. I have just a hair of a distraction for just a moment longer here. Let's see if we've got that taken care of. And there we go. Gosh, there's so many things breaking. I got to think which one I had mentioned to you. I think the one I mentioned to you is concerning the biscuit. But here's something that is also very interesting that just came up. I happened to hear it from Ann Vandersteel, and she's a friend, and we communicate. And so Ann did a broadcast yesterday, kind of breaking news, that Friday, a bunch of politicians and appointees had been notified that their documentation concerning the taking of the oath, which is required for all office holders, whether they're elected or appointed, their documentation showing that they had sworn their oath and signed and certified it was not on file, and that they had been FOIA'd and couldn't produce those documents. So when somebody, takes office, and they might have a ceremony where there's a ceremonial taking of the oath of office, but that has to be followed up with a legal document, which is notarized and then filed correctly. So the person taking office signs under penalty of perjury that they have taken the oath and will carry out the duties of the office, and then they sign under penalty of perjury, just like you have to sign your taxes under penalty of perjury. I swear everything I said here is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me, I perjure myself if I say anything else. Okay. In fact, a lot of people have refused to sign their returns, and because there's certain conditions that violates about your Constitution. But the courts have found otherwise. So signing of these documents is mandatory, not optional. And so a word like shall is optional. Required is mandatory. And so all of these office holders are required, before they begin to assume the duties of the office, to have taken an oath that is documented. It's been witnessed, it's been notarized. A notary has to put their seal on it, that they have firsthand knowledge that was the person, and they did what they said that they've done in that document, observed it, witnessed it, seal it, and then it has to be filed correctly. So an interesting thing, head of the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, Secretary of the Army, and such notable figures as, of all people, Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, has not taken or certified that their oath is done, filed the proper documentation, and has been put on notice in the last 48 hours that until that's done, if it's not done within 10 days, they're out of office. In going over this with other people in the legal arena, the reality is anything they've done until that documentation is filed correctly is need to be redone, where Kamala was the tiebreaker in the Senate. Think about that. So this is actually a very breaking news. I thank Ann for being on top of that, and the people that Ann is citing in this for their due diligence. And this has, overtones into the Brunson case, which, by the way, there's fresh things that just occurred. Loy and I had a long conversation yesterday on this and other matters like Brunson. And later in the week, we will break some of those things. We're waiting for a few things to happen, but there's probably fairly serious news. We'll see how it goes to present later in the week. So that's one thing. Does that sound pretty interesting?
No.
Your government's being run by a bunch of people who haven't. Think about this. Why, if they didn't do it, were they actually was it accidental, or was there a certain intent there, so that at the end of the day, anything that happens, I'm not responsible. I didn't swear I'd do this or that or the other thing. Look, if you don't sign your tax return, you're in deep kimchi, and they won't accept it. You can't accept the duties of your office if you're not going to do the certification and documentation correctly. You got to follow through and get everything done. You think that they're going to look the other way for the cop that hasn't actually been certified document to have taken the duties. And you got all these, the list that we have so far is, several dozen. And I don't think it's complete. And Loy and I were talking about this last night. Based on this, if you got the Vice President of the United States hasn't properly certified that they've taken the oath and filed the documentation correctly, whether it's by an act of omission or intentional. What about all of those? What if, when we do the FOIA, we find out a bunch of them were sloppy also and didn't get their, oaths of office, documented and filed correctly? That all they did is take the verbal oath and do a ceremony, but it wasn't, didn't seal the deal. You do a marriage certificate. You go say your vows in front of the priest, but then you got the paperwork and documentation, and you got to go file it with the government to be recognized. Think about that. So, and that's the paperwork everybody goes by. And if you didn't do it, just having a happy ceremony doesn't quite cut it. So where's the, where's the rest of the story here? I think it's going to be, I think there may be a there. It'll be interesting to find out.
You think that also would include the new Supreme Court justice, or is this just legislature?
I was surprised to hear that Kamala Harris, for example, that her stuff wasn't filed correctly. I'd be, I was amazed at that, but who knows? Maybe even Biden's stuff isn't filed correctly or followed through correctly. So until we know a little bit more, I think this is just an opening salvo on potentially a much bigger story. So, some people might say, it's a non-event. It's just, that's just a detail. Okay, well, don't sign your tax return, send it in, and let me know how that goes for you. Okay, it's just a minor detail. Will they accept it? Do they accept it as a legal document signed under penalty of perjury? Again, think about all those people that in the Brunson suits, and the fact that, the contention is they violated their oaths of office. Are they going to come back and say, well, I never actually completed the deal and I never signed the documentation, and so I'm not under any penalty? I didn't do that. Nobody cared, so nobody was looking. So look, the law, the courts are a process, okay, and they're treating us like processed meat. So they're just grinding this up and spitting this out. Okay, well, the process is flawed, something's wrong, and they want us to play by the rules. Shouldn't they have to play by the rules too?
Right, of course. So you think it's possible that, say, a Kamala can sign this afterwards, but it would be predated? And I don't mean physically.
Well, you're not going to be able to predate it.
I don't mean physically, though. I don't mean physically predated. I mean saying that everything that she's done since office, she was considered under oath if she signs it now. Is that a possibility?
Oh, I think the courts can do all sorts of things. They can decide that we're going to look this way or that way, or do a bill. But there's like 5 different U.S. statutes that cover this, and so. Even in talking with some of the people last night and this morning on this in the legal arena, the contention is that you want to make a fight about it. If nobody cares, whatever. They would care if it was you or me.
Right.
Okay. I had something years ago where there was a person that failed to update their driver's license, go in and get it renewed by like 2 weeks, and had a car accident. And the prosecutor actually charged him with driving without a license, and it was a big part of the fine. And then the insurance company came back and said, well, you weren't in compliance with the law. Now, this was in one of the American protectorates. But then said, we're not covering you on the accident because you were not driving legally. And there was a lot at stake in the accident. And so they were looking for any way to get out of the way on it. Well, again, it may be just a form and function thing, but, this was an older person. And one of the things that was in contention was, would they have given them a new license when they went back in? They went in and got their license successfully. But again, this whole thing, my recollection is that they did in fact not get covered on the accident by the insurance company because they were not driving legally, and the way the policy was written for that particular location, that wasn't an option. So, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a food fight. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
So let's put two narratives together, because these are very popular narratives in the Patriot movement. So the narrative you have right now is it's all falsified and there's games being played, but you're indicating that these people are legitimate. And there's another narrative. Let's say the Derek Johnson narrative, and I know he's connected to the Trump team that
existed prior to that act. And there was a question whether or not, based on the law of war manual, we are in a captured operation. And so those are all the little details. If you think you're going to get a definitive answer right now, that's probably just not a realistic way to look at the predicament we're in. There's a lot of feints. There's a lot of trolling being done by both sides, not fully revealing their hand because you're in occupied territory.
Mm-hmm.
Trump has done a number of things. It's not just one. He's done numerous things to let people know that there's something going on that you can't just drop your guard over. For example, he had the rally up in Michigan, I believe it was. And when he stepped out onto the stage, the flag had or stepped off the stage, I should say. He stepped to the back of the stage and was going down, and you saw that the American flag was vertical and the field of stars was blacked out, covered over. Mm-hmm. And that's a very important sign in the language of flags. It means you're on occupied territory. It's intended to tell your fellow troops, your fellow warriors, beware, the enemy has this area under their control, operate accordingly. You're in occupied territory. So that was no accident. That was not some frivolous thing that somebody did and President Trump was unaware of it. He was very aware of it. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you something else that just happened. Here's something that you may not be aware of that everybody here should contemplate on a bit. Now, I mentioned to a couple audiences a month or two ago, there's all sorts of, silliness that's been going on around the Gitmo, and is there tribunals and who's been hung this week and blah, blah, blah. And I mentioned, I don't know, probably a month and a half ago to several audiences that I have the fourth person that I became aware of from members of the intelligence community, people that had retired. These are people known to me personally. 4 of them now that I'm aware of. And the first one I became aware of back in late September, early October of last year. 4 of them now have been called back to sit on tribunals. Mm-hmm. And were not available during the holidays with relatives. Came back for just a day or something and raced off again. Now that's not public, and it's not at Gitmo. It's at other facilities. I would guess that they're not all 4 on the same tribunal because they weren't all called at the same time. The reason that they would call former intelligence officers is because of their subject matter expertise and not needing to be read in or cleared to hear certain information and look at certain documents. So being called in for tribunals out of the intelligence community tells me it's people in the intelligence community that are being tried, or people who had access to information exclusive to the intelligence community, certain types of information. You could include in that State Department people, special access projects, SAP projects, things like that, all sorts of things, potentially. But they cannot talk about what they're doing at all. And that is classified, and you're not going to get a news reporter to go talk to them and sit in on it or whatever. Those particular hearings are probably being done totally behind closed doors. Now, there will be some at some later point in time that will be public, but at this moment, there's some happening that clearly are paving the way for other stuff that will happen, that we'll be more aware of with more public figures. The ones right now are probably not necessarily people that we know of. But I say all of that for a reason. Yesterday, amazingly enough, somebody posted something to the effect that George Soros had just been, okay, and Trump retweeted it.
Yeah,
over on Truth Social.
He did. He
Retruthed it.
retweeted it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with that in mind, is he just trolling? Because remember, Soros, he's an operative British MI6, MI5 a little bit, but MI6 predominantly, because that's how they were getting black money for operations in their attack, really over here to the U.S. And remember, where did the attack on Trump really begin? The dossier that was out of City of London. That was with involvement of former MI5 and 6 officers. That was being run from there to take Trump out. What is it that they're worried about? Remember, the whole globalist, green, revolution and the carbon stuff and all that, trying to create a new tax across the whole world by unelected leaders. That's being orchestrated out of the City of London. And Trump's not going along with that. And so this is a monkey wrench in their great global plan to tax the world on energy use. And so a primary player in all of that is George Soros. So, and lots of other nefarious things that, he's been involved in. So Trump retruthing that is, that's a pretty, is he just trolling the other side? Is he just having fun with them? That's raising the bar pretty high on something that you got to go, well, but where's the beef? Where's the substance to that? How would he know for certain that it happened? Did Soros fall under U.S. jurisdiction or somebody else's in order for that to happen? What was the actual presiding body that had those authorities to pull that off? And then you come back to again, we've got 4 guys that are playing Biden. So
I need you to say that again out loud, please.
Yeah, we have 4 guys that are playing Biden. So
that's the question.
Well, in reality, where the more likely answer is that these are the other team trying to pull off a ruse, as they've done previously numerous times.
But why make him look so stupid?
Well, they have to stay within a certain zone. And I think there's arguably a case to be made that you're watching theater and that the whole thing with the Biden presidency is white hats and all that. But I don't think that as you get into it deeper, it actually holds water. When Congress certified the vote on January 6th, do you think Nancy is a white hat?
Right, I see. Right.
Okay, Nancy Pelosi. Do you think that Lady Gaga is a white hat when she was there for the inauguration with Biden? Was she playing her role as a white hat wearing?
I think we're off on the wrong take, because I'm not suggesting they're white hats by any means, but if you're under some type of control, they may have had to make a deal there. They have to play a certain part right now in order to get there. And what we're just trying to do is figure this out, because I believe you and I have had this discussion before, so this is, and I've had it with my viewers, so there's nothing new. I believe there's definitely controlled operation and there's controlled collaboration where, and I believe you, I've mentioned to you, I believe you're part of controlled collaboration because you're directing the narrative to get things done, which I'm not opposed to, by the way. I'm just not privy to the information. And therefore, if the narrative is being directed in a certain way where it bumps up to me, and this is why I'm just helping myself and my viewers figure this out, if we do have actors like you're suggesting, they may be or they are, but they may not be actors for the good guys, they may be a cover up from the bad guys. If they are actors from the good guys, then that would mean the Kamala Harris deal that you just mentioned with the oath and the Brunson thing would just all be part of the optics. You're suggesting those are real, and that's why I'm trying to connect these two together, which you're helping me do, and I appreciate that.
Well, let me just say this: the Brunson thing is absolutely real, and the ceremonies that are going on, the swearing-in ceremonies, the real contest. I've said it before, bears saying again. You have two groups that believe that they have the continuity in government authority to run America in a continuity government situation. Continuity government is that period where there's a transition from one elected group of government employees to another group of elected government employees to make sure that it's smooth, seamless. There's no gaps that could then make us vulnerable either to some kind of internal turmoil problem, handing off of records, responsibilities, etc., including all the way up through that continuity in government aspect is covered. Senior executive service, which was put into place in 1979 under Carter, which was ultimately created by a bunch of elitists, starting with George Bush Sr. After George Bush Sr. came back from China, remember during the Nixon administration, we opened up China, we started relations, and so we didn't have an ambassador to China initially. So this Kissinger associate, if you will, George Bush Sr., went to China as our business liaison to China to help open up business relations with China. He comes back and he's just a good businessman. He had Zapata oil and all that going back to the 50s. Kennedy was assassinated. And then he becomes director of the CIA under Jimmy Carter. Mm-hmm. Supposedly Republican, right wing, all this other stuff, and yet he's the guy that's put in there as head of the CIA. And during his time at CIA, they come up with this thing where we need a continuity in government organization, senior executive service. Senior executive service, and I have numerous friends, politicians, business people, who have become senior executive service employees, operatives. It's the highest paid branch of government. So this is no lightweight thing. You can go in and Wikipedia it. Senior executive service. It has the keystone as its emblem, holding the archway locked in place with that keystone. And senior executive service claims through legal constructs. Remember, it was created out of an executive order of the President of the United States, which at the time was Jimmy Carter, and was built upon over the decades, with all of its powers and the money, and they can hire tech executives from social media. They can hire arms manufacturers. They can do all sorts of things and pay them outrageous amounts of money to participate to provide this continuity in government operation. I believe before we're all done, you're going to find out that a lot of the mischief that has occurred across the world, false flags. Those false flags were funded, organized, coordinated, managed by senior executive service personnel. Things like Oklahoma City. Now, that's an outrageous statement to make, almost beyond comprehension for most people. But I believe before we're done, you'll know who was behind all of those events with precision, because that's part of the healing of America. And you're going to find SES intricately involved in the orchestration of those events and the protection of the information out through the media concerning, their involvement, including trying to manage gun control as a needed item in bringing America to heal, to be integrated into a larger global operation. The counterpoint to senior executive service is our nuclear arsenal and beyond, which is protected based on the 54 code, is protected from transfer of that power over into SES. Now, there have been all sorts of maneuvers where SES supposedly has those authorities, but they have not been perfected. And the guys in that system, it's not just Cheyenne Mountain, it's broader than that, 100 plus complexes and locations, facilities, aircraft. That has not been relinquished and handed over to them. And what Trump did when he, on March 15th, he closed up Cheyenne Mountain. He said, out of an abundance of caution, probably not. You would do it though for the federal office, the presidency, and it's hard to say exactly how you might want to play that out. There's options. So a lot of the people, I think, where people do get messed up is they have a perspective that it can only happen one way. In reality, there's some options for how this can play out. It's just like a chess game. As you go along, they make a move, we make a move, they make a move. But relentlessly, you're moving towards, some final series of moves that determine the overall game. Here we're chess at 5 levels. You could even lose a king and a queen on a couple of boards and still be in the game till the last king is down. So that's the kind of a situation we're in. It's a much more complex game, if you will, than most people care to realize. And just to let's go a little bit different way again. Who's actually in charge here? Remember, I talked with your audiences several times now about the Mar-a-Lago raid. At the Mar-a-Lago raid, 3 days before the raid, the FBI was there at Mar-a-Lago, met with President Trump in person. He opened up a secure storage location at Mar-a-Lago and allowed the FBI to rummage through all the records that he had that he brought with him to Mar-a-Lago from the White House. And they saw every piece of paper there in the safe. They were satisfied that he was supposed to have what he had there. And they left everything in place. He did it voluntarily. There was no court order requiring him to do that. He allowed them to come in and do this documentation, observe everything. The next day, the FBI informed Trump that the lock that he was using on that location was not as good as it should be as far as they were concerned, and asked him to replace the lock with one that they provided, which Trump did, that they would be more comfortable with, whatever. Then 3 days after they had been in and seen everything, they come and do the raid when Trump was out of town. Of course, now they got the lock. It's a piece of cake. They just pull off the lock because they provided it. They go in, they look through all the documents again, take some evidence, stuff that apparently they'd seen before, but now they decide these are not supposed to have, and they leave. The White House, during a press conference, expressed shock, I tell you, shock, that the FBI had proceeded with a search warrant and searched Mar-a-Lago. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. We're as shocked as everyone in the world. And now we know, just in the last week and a half, that's totally fallacious. That is not true. And in fact, the FBI isn't the one that wanted to go in and raid Mar-a-Lago. It was the White House that orchestrated it. President Biden had written agreed to a special thing, requested that this raid be done because there was certain materials at Mar-a-Lago which were needed for the day-to-day operations of the White House, that he could not do what he had to do in office without those materials. So they, under certain protocols that are exclusive to the White House for its day-to-day operations, allowed the raid to take place at Mar-a-Lago. Now think about what I'm telling you. What could President Trump have removed from the White House, taken with him to Mar-a-Lago, that is essential, critical for the day-to-day operations of the White House, that authority, the presidency? What could Trump have taken? Did he take the pencil sharpener? What did he take? Think about that.
Right. Obviously, he took something that's critical to the exposure, I believe.
Well, did he take Putin's private phone number? Did he take the lock box for, Adam Schiff's furry underwear? I mean, what did he take? What could be so critical? Is it a document? What document? Is it the license? Is it the title to the Marine One? To the Caddy armored tank?
Well, I think it's clear. It's proof of nefarious activities. Everybody,
over and over, it was said during that time period they were looking for. Okay, what they were looking for is called the biscuit. Yeah, it's a card. It's right. Bigger than a credit card. It's a card that the commander-in-chief carries with him at all times. People say the president, but technically the commander-in-chief, not the president. It's a different hat. The commander-in-chief carries that card with him at all times, so that if the guys have to rush to him with the suitcase, technically the suitcase, it's just a handshake between the commander-in-chief and the guys in the bunkers, or whichever location is actually needed to orchestrate a response. That response requires certain key codes that are authorizations and certain verifications to take place. So just, in a hypothetical, say that some force was threatened. Let's just use Central Europe right now. Strategic Command did something back in late April, early May, 2 years ago. Without any warning, they just posted something to their site where, it kind of notifies the neighborhood. There might be some trucks moving. You might hear a siren. It's not the end of the world. We're testing our sirens this week. It's just a, page for everybody there to be able to kind of know what's happening. So on that page, unsolicited, not directed at any point on the planet, there was just a communication put out. And remember, every intelligence agency in the world watches all these sites, just like for Cheyenne Mountain, because they're looking for the tiniest clue that something might be up, something's about to happen, somebody's going to do something. So they all watch it. You know, if the president blows his nose, they're checking to see if he might, you know, have some nefarious, horrible disease. Okay, does he scratch his ear? Is his ear going to fall off? Is there something wrong with him? They're looking at everything. It's the craziest thing in the world. You can't do anything in public as, you know, these key figures. So, you know, they're watching everything. So when Strategic Command had this short little paragraph posted on its site, it said, if a force is about to be overrun and use of conventional weapons will not deter, use of tactical nukes authorized. Okay, what's that? What's that mean? What's the context? Is it aimed at China? Is it aimed at Russia? Is it aimed at space aliens? Is it aimed at Antarctica? What's it talking about here? But at the time period, to put it in context, that was when Russia was coming up on the border of Ukraine with the largest military exercise since World War II, with all of their troops, all these tanks and everything else coming up on the border of Ukraine. And the concern was that they were going, this wasn't just an exercise, that they were in fact going to go invade Ukraine. And so going into Ukraine is one thing. Going beyond Ukraine to where the NATO forces were, where the tripwire is with American forces on the border of Ukraine, that's a different matter. And the Russians clearly have the troops present, the armaments, the skill sets, etc. They could run halfway across Europe. And so what would you have for deterrence? Well, tactical nukes. And tactical nukes, just so people understand, these are lower yield, as opposed to wipe out another civilization, go destroy all their cities and like that, where much higher yield weapons would be used with intercontinental ballistic missiles or something like that.
Okay, so Juan, with these extended answers, do you have 5 to 6 hours to get through all my questions? I'm up for it if you are, but I just
no, I actually have another interview that's been pre-scheduled for in about 50 minutes, but I've got enough time. We'll get through them as fast as I can.
Can we go, if we can rapid fire on some of these?
Sure.
Because you and I can have, I think we're really close on some things, but I do have some questions I want to definitely get to. What do you think the Patriot focus should be right now? If you were to give a message to Patriots, say what should they be focusing on right now? Because because I'm part of We the People, we want to make a difference. Where would you think our focus should be right now?
States' rights.
Okay, good. So more locally.
Well, it's states' rights, and then you have all sorts of legal constructs. The feds are stealing authority to themselves that the Constitution does not allow. And we're a union of states. In fact, originally, the senators going to the U.S. Senate were considered ambassadors from the states. That was a different role than it currently is today with this elected position. This is a really important point. Over the years, a number of Supreme Court justices have noted that going to the way that the Senate is managed today is, first of all, a violation of the Constitution, and it undermines the state's authorities. And that has been this, Reagan himself said more states' rights, state responsibility, even Roe versus Wade. A legal construct was created usurping power away from the states to the federal government concerning abortion. And what the court found last year was that, and it's specifically said, an earlier court erred in its judgment. It pulled authority to make decisions concerning abortions to the federal government and away from the states. And people say, that they destroyed everything for abortion. No, they returned it to a state decision where the people have better control over what's going on. And some states, apparently the people want it, and other states, people don't.
Yeah.
So it's a fight at the state level. The same thing is true whether you're talking taxes or justice. Look what happened when Texas, with 31 other states, came to the Supreme Court and said, hey, 6 of these states are cheating, like Maricopa or Clark County in Nevada. The other counties have to come in and do the challenge from within the state. Doesn't mean that you don't have a fight in those counties or at the school district level, etc. But it's a state matter.
Yeah,
and we don't want the feds coming in to
we actually
manage
agree with that. No, we do agree with that. I just want people to really understand how important it is to make changes with inside their communities, because the micro does fix the macro. But you and we do agree on taking care of states' rights, and ultimately that's why a lot of decisions, not just Roe versus Wade, are being handed back down to the states, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, but here's the problem. Sometimes you get too micro. And that's why I'm saying states. I'm not saying county rights. I'm not saying city rights. I am saying states' rights for a reason. Let me use an example. In Toppenish, Washington State, you have 2 buses twice a week, as fast as they could go down to the border region, load people up, and come back to Toppenish, which is 2 trips a week with 2 buses, with over 200 people total. In a week period, they're bringing them up to Toppenish, which is this little city there in Washington State. And then what they're doing is they have vans, and these are government vans. These are all, ICE somebody coming in with these vans that pick up all the passengers off these buses and take them out to communities around that region. Okay. They're bringing in 200 people a week just to that one location and around that county area.
Mm-hmm.
Then you multiply that by 52 weeks in a year. You get a very large number of people, and that's just one. Other locations, I could go right across Ontario, Oregon, same thing. I was out there in Tennessee the other day, Eastern Tennessee, same thing. Even up into Vermont and New Hampshire, people think that this border thing is isolated. It's not. And then I was talking with a couple of the people that were there and an interpreter just a few days ago. And one of the things that was said, they asked one of the people if he had a driver's license. Yes. Who helped him get it? He got it. He doesn't speak English. He came up from Guatemala, but he has a driver's license. And then in somebody else's little conflict to create a global body with global governance authority of unelected, only appointed individuals to manage the rest of us. It's bullshit. It's not constitutional. It's not American. And yet our power is being handed over under legal constructs in violation of the Constitution by our representatives doing things that are not constitutionally allowed. It's judicial fiat. I talk about that in my 3rd edition that's coming out shortly, and I'll expand that further there, but it's judicial fiat. You have a fiat currency of authorities that is literally paper thin, but everybody accepts it as legal tender. Um, uh, and they're spending the currency of your nation's rights to go do what they want to do anywhere in the world.
All right. Let's switch gears real quick. I know this is not such a private conversation because you also had this publicly too. Your little concern with the spiritual movement inside the patriot movement. I know I've said publicly a lot of times, and it upsets people. I know there's a bunch of spiritual gypsies running around that we have to be careful for. I think you have a completely different take on that, and your concern maybe the direction that we could be going with this. If you can touch on that, because you have some really interesting words on that.
Well, I mean, I invoke the power of God Almighty in heaven, and I enjoy the opportunity to pray with my fellow citizens. So, I have, compared a lot of what's going on to spiritual matters here in the country. I don't purport to be the spiritual police or something. We have a country that's very diverse in the way we view God and spiritual matters. The beauty of freedom in America is that we have the freedom to worship according to what our understanding is. That some of it's family understanding, some of it's other corporate type understanding. There's a lot of different things there. The problem is, and it's probably not, let me say it correctly, within the patriot movement, you have a lot of people that, you wonder, you have to sit there and think, are they there because it's the patriot movement? They're making a lot of money doing what they're doing. It's become a job, a business for them. And in the spiritual community, even the founding of our country, there was a lot of divine assistance asked for. Even at the moment they were trying to sign the original Constitution, there was things where there was differences of opinion. And Benjamin Franklin said, in my life, I've noticed one thing, that God governs in the affairs of men, and there's nothing that happens that he is not aware of. And if this is to succeed, we need to invoke and ask of God, divine assistance in order to, start this country. It's not just an individual, something as big as a country, and you think God's not there involved, interested in the outcome. Of course he is. So they kneeled and prayed and asked for divine assistance, supervision, and they finally came to resolution on the matters to then sign the Constitution. So there is a valid divine aspect, and a lot of them had different views of God, maybe came from different churches and things like that, but they were able to find common ground of looking all towards God in heaven. Is there a possibility that there's people that are now invading our patriot movement who hope to undermine it from inside? In the Old Testament, repeatedly, one of the themes that was going on, you had these Baal worshipers that ultimately became sun worshipers. Horus, the sun god, Osiris, his father, Isis, the mother and sister. And even in the temple, behind the curtains, behind the wall, the priests had erected towers to Ashereth. They had erected towers to the tower god, pillars to the pillar god. What are those? That's Osiris. That's the monument at the center of Washington, D.C. That's Baal worship. And they had infiltrated the synagogue, the church of God, if you will, in the Old Testament, with their occult practices. And the priests had gone over. And so while the people outside thought that, this is all good and it's on the right note and everybody's being holier than thou, behind the scenes, there was a type of evil wickedness taking place right there in plain sight, just behind the walls. Within, they infiltrated that. They did it by design. It wasn't an accident. By degrees and measures, they got into that, into the synagogue. Are there players within the Christian movement, the church movements, who are infiltrating and mutually self-promoting each other, just as has happened inside the political and business stuff? Is there groups, individuals who have infiltrated, say, the university system, have infiltrated the seminary system or the Bible school system, who aren't even Christians, believe in another God and are trying to divert people? In the same way that maybe people are getting in, Marxists are getting into office here in America and trying to dilute our political system. Is there people in the patriot movement or the church movement, which do tend to move together, that actually have nefarious purposes to divert us off into other things, to use the patriot movement as a tool, a mechanism to bring in transgender stuff into the church? And I say that specifically to bring confusion into the patriot movement, into the political movements, to undermine what we're doing and where we're at. And I think as you start looking at some of the stuff within the church movements, which are running parallel to the patriot movement and some of the groups like that, that's in fact the case. So how does that get dealt with? That's why I've recommended, that a lot of the people that we talk to go and find ministries that are engaged in, healing directly. I've suggested Curry Blake. Curry Blake is there in north of Dallas, and has a beautiful church, Dominion Life Church, I believe, or Dominion Life Fellowship up there. And the thing is that there's not the falsehood of some of these ministries. Christ sent the apostles out by twos, and they were told to go and heal the sick and to preach the good news and cast out demons. And they did that. And these were things that could not be easily faked. Moses, when he confronted Pharaoh and he threw his staff down, it became a snake. And this was for a sign to Pharaoh. But then the priests cast their staffs down and they also became snakes because it was a magic act. But there was one difference. Moses's staff that turned into a snake ate all the snakes of the other priests. It was the more powerful one, and embarrassed them because the staff was like your bars on your uniform, showing authority and like that. And so they just got all of their badging removed. So the reason I say that is that there is that which is real and that which is not. In the New Testament, there was magicians, there was people that claim to, know the future and things like that, that went around and did their stuff. But they came to the apostles and tried to buy what they had, because it was obvious that theirs was real and the other was just good magic. And they thought it was a magic act, and it wasn't. You're going to see somewhere in here, over what happens over the next months and years, that the real move of God will trounce, will overshadow any fake movement, any feel good. Oh, we all feel wonderful, and this is a great warm fuzzy feeling. That will go to the wayside, because the ones that are actually moving according to God's will and under God's direction and blessing will do real miracles, uncontestable miracles, including all the way. And in a very Lazarus sense, as Christ came closer and closer to Jerusalem for that great contest, coming to the cross, that was when the raising of Lazarus occurred, and it took it to a completely another level beyond just healing the blind. People have been blind from birth and things like that. And I think that in America, with what's coming and the magnitude of the crisis that we're nowhere close to yet, it's still long months away for various aspects. We have a huge trauma ahead of us. As we get there, though, God will raise up people in our midst that will do things that, by divine appointment, divine power, that cannot be faked by some of the people that are out there right now.
Okay. Now, are you indicating, would that be from a Christian standpoint? Is that what you're focusing on? No, I meant,
except
but
to vote.
It's Christianity, though, correct? It's not.
That's right.
It's not Buddhism or something else. So,
Well, let me just say this. I understand the spiritual stuff. Look, one of my very closest friends is Muslim. We've had these conversations many times, and he's if I had to trust myself or people that were close to me to somebody in a foxhole, I would do it with him in a heartbeat. And I know all the stuff they want to lie and cheat and all this other stuff. Well, you can say that about some of the Christians. Read your Old Testament. This is a person that is closer than a brother. Okay. But we've also had very intense, detailed, deep conversations within, religious, matters. They read the Old Testament. There's all sorts of things in there, but we're a Christian nation. God did something special in America here. And the move of God, my opinion, that is coming will be a move within the Christian community to make the changes in America and bring us back to the constitutional protections that were there. It was Christians that landed at Plymouth Rock and consecrated their actions moving forward and planted that seed here in America, leaving the bloodline rule from Europe. And the miracles are not being done in the Buddhist faith. They're not being done in the Muslim faith. They can say anything they want. I'll go head to head with them anytime. That is something that is part of the fingerprint of God's presence and anointing on his people that is exclusive to Christ and Christ's church. And God will not be mocked, and he will not have his church mocked. He will come to show himself in the midst of the church, and the divine imprint, seal of his presence with his people is in fact a restoration of authority going back to Adam over everything that creeps and crawls and moves upon the earth, and ownership of the earth itself. And that right, those authorities are only restored through Christ at the cross, where the payment of sin was paid, and then it reconciles the relationship with God in heaven and allows all of those powers and authorities back to God's people. And that doesn't exist in these other religions. So you can feel good. You can have all sorts of wonderful sayings and things like that. But the mark on the church in the New Testament period and out through time, across time, has been signs and wonders, healing, casting out of demons. And you're not casting out demons in the name of Buddha.
Right. So a question I'm sure my listeners would ask then if you're, say, an African child that's never been exposed to Christianity, are you forsaken, or how exactly does that work in your opinion?
Romans talks about that everyone is judged based on what they know, but then God's responsibility is to show himself in every heart and mind, and that's his responsibility. And so we as his people go out and minister and bring the good news of salvation, and give people that information on which to make a personal decision. But it's God himself. You have people. I remember Helen Keller was, she was deaf and she couldn't see. And over time, she learned how to communicate, had someone that helped her, and took long time to get better and better being able to communicate, came up with a form of communication. And somebody asked her about God at one point in time, and very church type of thing. Do you know who Jesus is? And etc. And she responded that she always knew that God was present, even when she couldn't communicate it, that she always knew he was there. And so there was a divine presence acknowledged, but then she also learned the salvation message and agreed. We all as adults have to we come to a point of decision. Do we recognize that there's sin in the world? Do we recognize that sin gives an inroad for evil? Satan, Lucifer, the devil, goes by 1,000 names. Do we choose which team we want to be on? We make a choice. I accept that Christ paid the penalty of sin, and that he did it in my place, and therefore I can be reconciled with God in heaven. And the authorities that were lost when sin entered in at the garden are back, restored to me as an individual, and my responsibilities also out to the world to walk in a restored rights and understandings as God originally intended, and that the crossroads for that is the cross, the payment of the penalty of sin. Sin is separation from God Almighty, and where there was defiance against God, not following his will, then the opportunity to be reconciled is now there through Christ, and we can be reconciled with God and live in a saved condition via the blood of Christ, and actively moving away from a mentality that's sinful and slavery and Egypt and all that sort of thing, to freedom in the cross, to do the right thing, to make uh, uh, and that's the salvation message.
Mhm. All right, excellent. So let's I'm going to just throw a couple quick fun ones at you. Are you part of the Trump team, and does the Trump team have people out there specifically trying to control the message in a certain direction for best results, of course?
If you're MAGA, you're Trump. Make America great again.
Oh, that was a good diversion. I like that one. All right, let's you've been asked this before, but some of my listeners may be new to you. Why do you hide your face?
I did do some very sensitive work for a lot of years, and there's some of those places are still not known, don't want to make it public, and some of those people may not be fully aware of some of those other things. And so there is shared identities back there in the past, and it's just the way it is. And it does allow me a certain amount of freedom of movement because I have, I do run in a fairly eclectic crowd. And, I was in the last 2.5 weeks, I was with multiple prime ministers from different countries, president from another country, and some of those staff in sensitive situations. And some of those contacts are not easy to do. Let's put it this way, I am a bit of a lightning rod on some of the stuff that we discuss, and they cannot be too readily associated with some of that. People say, "Oh, they've gone all the way over to this. They're thinking that way." Whatever. You can't have an honest discussion, and so it does allow a little bit of better freedom of movement for things that still need to be done.
Okay, and when you speak in person, are you wearing a disguise at that time in order to continue to protect yourself?
Well, I'm me. You've talked with me enough times. I've been in person enough times. I'm pretty consistent.
And then, okay, and there's speculation out there that there's multiple ones too. Yeah, I know Trump has body doubles and other people have body doubles. Is that a reasonable question?
Well, I mean, there certainly is doppelgangers out there.
And that was a left turn. Okay, got it. Let's now this is very interesting. I think you're going to love this question. Years ago, when we first talked the first time, you mentioned something, and I didn't repeat it because I didn't hear you say it publicly. And then I've heard you say it publicly. You mentioned that you believe the good guys, maybe even bad guys too, they have what you called, I believe, better than a quantum computer, where they run multiple millions of simulations to get to something.
Well, let me clarify this.
Yeah, please.
I don't like the term quantum. Number one, it's not actually an accurate term. Okay. If people accept it, and so there's no need to get too wound up over it. But it really isn't the best term. The whole quantum idea, it breaks down at a certain point. But for most people, it's a term that they recognize, and it has some, means really advanced and big and special and different than all the existing other systems. We do have very advanced systems. It's still a computer. There were times years ago, decades ago, when the guys liked to call them a time machine. And all it was taking known facts, speculative facts, and then calculating conclusions. And, when I was first aware of it, 45 years ago, compared to today, the analysis and conclusions were rather clumsy. Just think of robotics 45 years ago and how clumsy they might have looked. And then compare that with the robotics today. It's stunning how advanced robotics is, but so are the calculations, the data points that are looked at, looking for conclusions. A good example is in the stock market. You've got artificial intelligence that is making very rapid, advanced decisions on stock trades, and they're in and out of stocks, sometimes multiple times a second. Now think about that. Within the markets, they're doing calculations and high-speed trading. You can't possibly compete with that unless you're controlling the circumstances around which those stocks are moving, say the laws or legislation, some event. You know that oil is going to go up in 8 hours because you did a secret deal behind the scenes, and therefore airline stocks prices and values are going to go down because they use a lot of oil, fuel, refined processes. And so you get in there in advance. Maybe the computer knows that it's going to have to do that because of certain things that happen with meetings or something like that. It anticipates. These are all just calculations. You could call it a time machine because it's able to take lots of variables, put those all together, and then come up with expectations, directions, likely routes. Those calculations aren't even done anymore at these large aggregate levels. They're done right down to the individuals. They can look at your personal buying patterns, places you go, people you interact with, and then dial those into a calculation that involves every person in America. And you say, well, it's 350 million. Some of them are kids, some of them are this and that. In the aggregate, they can anticipate how you're going to jump, react overall on the large numbers on lots of different things. And they can see it days, weeks, months, years in advance based on if we do this, they'll do that. If we have enough gun things over time and we bring it to this, the population's going to react in a certain way, and it's relatively predictable. It's going to take this many events to finally cause them to collapse. That's all done with computers, and those operations to do those calculations have become extremely sophisticated.
Do you feel like some of this, or are you concerned, just an honest concern, that some of this may take away our God-given discernment, or is it just a tool? What is your thought?
Oh no, it's the AI threat is very real.
That's on. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that, because we're going on the wrong track. I meant from the good guys. Are you concerned that they may be making decisions that are based wholly on the AI and not using their discernment at the same time?
Not at all.
Okay.
That's not at all true, because the whole point is the foundation for all of these decisions does go back to founding documents and the Constitution, citizen rights, and the solution to get America back on track. The founding fathers were brilliant. There was divine. The Constitution is, second only to the scriptures as far as I'm concerned, in the genius in which it was constructed, anticipating things in ways that you look at it and go, man, how did they know this back then? How did they anticipate this back then? Very accurately, the crises that were to come. Something as simple as and basic as, the only real money, the only real tender legally is gold and silver coin. Why? Because everything else is paper fiat. And if you don't have honest weights and measures, then everything gets out of control. Honest weights and measures leads to justice, leads to good neighbors, good fences, including to our other countries around us. And as soon as it was violated in the name of the American people, we have been used. There was a movie I was watching, Rush Hour 3, the other night. I saw just 5 minutes of it in the middle of some Jackie Chan movie, and they have this cab driver, and so he's a foreigner from some probably Ukraine or something, and at one point he says, I just want to be an American. I just want to be like Americans. The key is, and this is very local, this is where your thoughts were, it's all the way down not to the state or the county or the municipality or the water district. It's to the individual citizens. Citizens have to decide that they're not going to yield their constitutional rights, their right to have free speech. They're not going to have it taken away by a bunch of FBI goons working in concert with a bought and paid for social media operation that was actually a DARPA operation, such as Facebook. They're not going to cooperate with that and have their voice shut down. They're not going to give up their guns, the right to defend themselves and their household and their community, and to work in concert and create a militia. They're not going to allow that their books and papers can be seized, that they themselves can be seized in fake court operations by legal constructs. We're going to reassert our citizen rights. A right that you don't exercise is no right at all. So we're going to have to exercise our rights and make sure that the politicians that are there respect that, and the ones that don't are out. And in the meantime, if this is that capture of an operation and we need the military, we're not sending them to Central Europe. We're going to keep them right here. They're our brothers and sisters. They're our family, and they're going to protect America, make America great again. Then we'll worry about going out and taking care of the rest of the world. We're not going to go fight for the Nazis in Ukraine against, by the way, Russia is our natural ally. Who's been putting us at odds with Russia all along? Yeah. Again, the dossier was a trumped up fake document set up by people in the city of London to get us fighting a natural ally. Russia, Soviet Union's gone. The evil empire has collapsed. The Russian people were trying to provide oil and gas into Europe and do trade with Europe with the Nord Stream pipelines. They were trying to, be civilized. Who doesn't want Russia and the Russian people to be able to enter into commerce with the rest? What's the threat there? Okay. So anyway, I've got another show I've got to do that's already pre-scheduled. I hope that at least got a few questions out of the way for you.
Yeah, we did. We'll do a part 2, but I appreciate your time. And folks, hold on. I know there's a lot of questions in the chat that were specifically for me or Juan. I'll try to get to some of them. And Juan, you and I'll talk soon. Hope to see you in San Diego at our Mega Free event. That'll be a good one in June. Don't have a date yet, though.
All right. Well, I certainly, if I will, I've got just super heavy travel really for the rest of the year. The country's going to be going through a lot of drama. Everybody take a deep breath. We're all going to get through this, and we're going to do it. We're not going to fight each other. We're going to work together. We're going to get through it.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye. All right, folks. That was, I think, a pretty good one with Juan there. We did get through a few questions. And I know I had some questions directly for me. Well, in general. So let's talk about the documentary Cages really quick. Oh, by the way, if you're here right now, please like, subscribe, and share this video, and make sure that you tell everybody how much you love us. My wife always reminds me that I'm really poor at doing that, but I'm good at giving that advice to other people. So real quick, folks, the documentary Cages, yes, we've kept getting more information on it. This week is going to be massive work on finishing that documentary this coming week, all through the week. If I have to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning every night to make sure it gets done before I leave for True Tour Hawaii, I absolutely will. This is what the goal is. So it will be launched this April. We're going to make sure of it. We think it's going to help wake up a lot of people. And it's really a docudrama, so it should help keep you from an entertainment aspect engaged in it. And again, if you're very an empath and you don't want to hear these things, just also remember my intention never is to break anybody mentally in these. So there will be a lot of good news of things that we see happening. So Juan and I kind of have a disagreement on some things. I think there's maybe more white hat involvement, but not as much as some of my friends say that the white hats are completely in control. I think we are watching a movie of sorts for sure. I also believe that we, the people, have all the power. And my frustration with so many people, I'm not going to name any, is we don't touch on that we, the people, have all the power. When we stand up together collectively, we are absolutely unstoppable. And it's proven time and time and time again, over and over and over. We can show you the scenarios where it works. It should not even be a conversation anymore. What it should be is us motivating our loved ones to stand up. Now, I get that you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, and I get that's the point of view they're going to take. But you can find something that they agree on, and you talk with them on that level. Maybe they don't agree that we should have porn in a middle school. Great. Hey, let's go together. Forget about all the other conspiracy stuff. Put that aside. Let's go together and let's address this at our school board meeting. These are the little things that we can do over and over and over. We're having a lot of power, and we have Post-its. If you guys haven't seen it, maybe I'll bring it up here real quick, and this, just be very clear. This is not a promotion. This is just a tool that's been working fantastically. So I want to show it to you. I wasn't prepared, but if anybody knows me, I kind of wing it half the time anyways, because it's whatever. I believe God has conversations through us, and then that's where I go. So let me show you the screen really quick. This is very interesting. So we are this close to finally releasing the Patriot app that everybody's been asking for. What is the Patriot app? Patriot app means that if you just go to this Patriot app that we're going to release hopefully in a few weeks, you just put in your zip code. You can have a fake name. It doesn't matter. You can geo-target your area, whether it's your city, your county, or maybe just 5 miles away from you. You want to connect with Patriots in your area. Boom. This is a social media app that you can communicate with them right there. When it really comes in powerful, when there's an event, you guys can connect together. What if there is porn in some middle school? Guess what? You connect, you gotta go, hey, 50 of us, let's go to the school board meeting. And it works over and over and over. This will be the most amazing app that's out there to connect Patriots. Again, it's free. Everything I'm trying to do is free. It doesn't matter how financially how it affects us. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm done with it. So I'm trying to do whatever I can for free right now. The Hawaii trip's not for free because it's taken me in the ass. I'm just like, I don't know how many tens of, well, I'll just tell you, we're like $38,000 in the hole there right now. But in the future, I'm going to try to do these for free. I kind of came up with an idea how we can do all this stuff for free, and donations help. I'm not asking for donations right now, just so you know, but donations help. So the freedominaction.net website is an amazing tool. The tool that comes out for patriots to use an app real quick to connect, because everybody feels like they're an island. That's an amazing tool. The Cages documentary, I think, will be an amazing tool. All we're trying to do is give you guys tools, because this is my belief system. God won, but we, the people, need to get off our couch and we win faster, which means we, the people, control the timeline, guys. It's us. We can't be complacent anymore. We can't wait for President Trump to ride on that beautiful white Pegasus and fly in and swoop down and save the day. He's doing his job. Military's doing their job. We, the people, need to do our job. And that just means activate. Even on a small level, you can make a freaking difference. Imagine if you were the one that pioneered in your school district to get porn out of the middle school libraries. May seem like not such a big deal, but then what if what you did was use an example worldwide? Guys, throw the pebble in the water and it makes amazing results. You have to believe in yourself. And one of my passions is trying to get people to understand you have everything it takes to make a difference. You don't need to wait on anybody. God gave you every gift in the world. You just have to communicate. All I would suggest is when you're talking to people, you need to talk to them on their level. Where are they? Talk to them where they are, and then slowly acclimate them to the conversation. People are going to come back to you. They're going to be hurt when they start waking up. They may or may not apologize, but it doesn't matter. All you need to do is say, I'm here for you. Put your head on my shoulder. Any question you have, I'll be there for you. That's what we, the people, need to do. God is what's inside all of us. We are so extraordinarily powerful. And collectively, we make the difference. I'm so excited about this. So there's some quick questions. Also, there's another question about Mike Gill, so on and so forth. What do you think about Mike Gill? So if you don't know, Mike Gill has the Pandora Papers. Mike Gill's worth like $250 million. He's been running around for 5-6 years, hiding from the cabal because he's exposing their money laundering operations and how it all ties right back to New Hampshire. So Mike Gill will have a featured part, because I've already interviewed him. Many of you don't know this. Understand the construct of Biden right now and so on and so forth, but he's extremely important in this movement. So guys, we need to stop for a second. We tend to judge people right away. Juan has a piece of the puzzle. Mike Gill has a piece of the puzzle. Lewis Herms might have a piece of the puzzle, right? Don't judge any one of us because we may not be as advanced in your thinking or even have the thought process that you have, right? Juan and I disagree on many things. He knows that. He still has the courage to come on my show and take some questions. He's very good at the filibustering, and I'm not saying anything behind his back. I've said this to him, and it's kind of a fun retort that we'll have. But the reality, he still came on the show and took questions, and I appreciate that. Guys, we've got this. We've got this with love and the power that God has given us. And what happens is I think we should need to put our differences aside and just find that one piece of unity where we can drive forward. And I'm hoping that Cage's documentary makes the difference. I hope that Cage's documentary can bring people and they go, you know what? We can agree on this. I absolutely am against complaining about something without finding a solution. So there's solutions in there as well. Folks, if you can uppercase, type in real quick a couple of questions. I'll take a couple of questions before we go. I just want to, my ScrewBigGov website has been completely revamped. Lisa Richards did it for me, did a fantastic job. We have somebody in the background with her. I want to give credit for her. She's always helping on this stuff, but she does not want to be in the limelight. I'll just say, because you know who you are, you're a fantastic author. And let's see here. Let me show you this real quick while we're looking for questions in there. Mine too. So now that we got that aside, because all that stuff makes me very uncomfortable. Let's see. So Coast Rider says, does NutriSwift work well with ASEA redox? I've been told it does. I actually really like ASEA, so it makes sure. And I can just tell you, I just ordered ASEA today. It's ironic that you would say that because I want to see if I can amp up my effects of that. And my dog has an issue that I know ASEA would work with directly. So well, the issues is he's old, so he's bleeding a lot. And ASEA has a good coagulant feature to it. Sorry. And I'm not trying to promote, I have no connection to ASEA whatsoever. So that's on you guys. How do we get to sell Neumi? So when you go to my site, neumi.com/lherms, click on member. And when somebody completes 100% of the training, which is really easy, let me know and I'll work with you directly to help you sell and help support your group. And also we have a lot of calls and other stuff. A lot of people love the NutriSwish, and the skincare is amazing. You just spray it on your face. Let's go with I don't know Allie Carter. I've heard about Allie Carter. Yes, I don't know her personally. What do you do if your employer does allow you to transfer funds to gold? Diversify. I know you're not a financial advisor, but I struck you. Yes, thank you for putting the I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a silver guy. I think there's something with gold for sure, but I believe based on all the uses of silver and the way the silver has been suppressed and the differential between silver and gold historically, even now silver should be a lot higher just in compared to gold directly. So I'm a silver guy. I love silver, but that's me, not financial advice. Scotland, is the petrol ship significant? I don't know the answer to that question. I would like to help, but I have to be transparent. I do not know. Okay, so if the question's not in capital letters, I probably won't be answering it. I think that about does it. Let's do this. Let's play 2 songs. So I will pick them, but you guys can suggest them. I'll pick them based on suggestions. I prefer an upbeat song, so I'm going to tell you I will lean in that direction. Let's see here. Ooh, Jax, the meek will inherit. Okay. Let's talk about the meek really quick. So I did a movie, actually, not a movie, probably like a short, probably less than 10 minutes, a little video about the meek shall inherit the earth, which is actually called the red-pilled shall inherit the earth. Why did I do that? Because I believe in studying the origins of everything. And you'll be surprised. So if you study the origins of Easter, you're going to be shocked. If you study the origins of how we got the Gregorian calendar and the manipulation there, you will be shocked. If you look at 2009, how they changed the definition of a pandemic in the dictionary, you will be shocked. Always look at the origins if you want to find out the truth. Look at the origins. So the origins of meek. Meek was actually a strong person that would actually help the weak. He was the voice of the weak and the power to help rise people up. But that's not what we're told. We're told in churches, cabal churches, in my opinion, that the weak is to just be docile and complacent. Well, because they don't want you to fight back. No, meek is from a horse called praus, which I believe was Turkish, that meant strength and power. So that's what meek is. So when it's the meek shall inherit the earth, it's the strong and the powerful and the ones that help others that will inherit the earth. Don't be fooled. Kate, doesn't look like any questions. Let's see if we have. Oh, good question. Good song, Smolten. I'll definitely do that one. So that's Lean on Me. That's can't go wrong with that. Let me put that one in. Okay. So we will play that one. And what other song do we have? Well, Wink and Woo, I wouldn't play your song without listening to it first. No, I'm sorry to say that. It could be amazing and I'll check it out myself, but I would always have to listen to it first before I played it on my channel. Many thanks to you and your wife for all that you do. Oh, God bless you. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that. Do you have a merch store? Oh, I do. I always forget to mention it. So if you go to screwbiggov.com, I actually have just on there t-shirts and hats right now, but I'm working with somebody special. I don't know if she wants to be named right now. We will be putting a lot of merch on there in the future. Anything I can do to finance this operation, I will. So I appreciate you asking. I hear that the Screw Big Gov shirt and hats are really big hits. People really seem to enjoy wearing them out in public because people ask questions about them, which is kind of cool. And the quality is definitely there too. E3 cents about the calendar that Pastor Biltz does. Is it a 13-month calendar? Because if it is, I would be interested in seeing it. If it's not, I would not have interest because we're definitely should be on the 13-month calendar. All right, so let me play. I'm going to play the song right now. I found out on this system so far, I have to share the screen in order for it to play better. So I will share the video also, but I'll be here in the background and we'll play one more song after that. Un momento, señores and señoritas. Well, that about does it for today. A lot of love to everybody out there. Appreciate you. I have a huge week coming up. In fact, tomorrow I have 2 separate shows, one with Ethan Lucas, one with Jack Lander. And then I have a wonderful show for the first time Tuesday with Dylan Monroe from the Deep State Mapping Project. Love Dylan. And then Wednesday, I have another show with Mark Atwood and Terrell Biden together, followed by a show with somebody you may or may not be familiar with. She's very close to the Trump team. That's Lee Valentine. She'll be on the show Wednesday. Then I'll have my buddy Robert Imbrael here. We'll probably simulcast that show and talk about SBG Prosper and some other things. And then to be announced is the wonderful Keith Blandford. And I know he's doing something very, very important. And he makes changes. He works very, very hard. Keith has extraordinary information. That date will be determined. So busy week. In the meantime, while I'm not doing that, I will be working on the documentary. So I will spend a little time in Telegram, not too much time because I do have some priorities that I have to take care of. Again, if you want to support Screw Big Gov or anything we do, or just find out what we do, how and where, go to screwbiggov.com. A lot of love to everybody. God bless you. We are in this together. We already won. We really just have to do the work to reap the harvest. So I pay you a due for now. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for being in here too. See you guys. Bye-bye.